Distorted Wish, Chapter 5, Worries. Marinette yawned. Long night? Alia asked, taking her place at the seat beside her, stowing her bag under the desk. No, well, yes, Marinette admitted. She hadn't gotten much sleep after meeting with Chat Noir outside and then subsequently sprinting to get back while he circled Paris like she asked him. Her mind kept her awake, running through so many thoughts and sheer guilt. I barely know him, and he's, a hero on top of that. I couldn't sleep with him there, just doing. She gestured wildly, trying to illustrate all that Chat Noir was, and the fact of sharing a room with that force of nature. He's judging me for all the weird stuff and weird fashion sketches and pictures of Adrien I have in my room. I just know it. I meant about Adrien. Alia rolled her eyes. I figured you'd be worrying yourself all night over him. I even tried calling to check up on you, but you didn't answer your phone. Marinette sat up. Adrien? What happened? There wasn't a special magazine edition featuring him that demands he travels to a far-off country that was announced last night that I missed, was there? No. He's missing, Marinette. Marinette rocked back, suddenly feeling numb. Missing? She grabbed her friend by the collar, glancing first to Adrien's empty seat in front of her, then to the door. But the boy of her dreams didn't walk in. Her head jerked to stare at Alia with wide eyes. What happened? Alia gently eased Marinette's hands off her sweater and scooted closer to her, glowing her voice. It's all over social media. After the attack, he didn't come back to school and never went back home either. His bodyguard hasn't seen him at all, she explained. They're saying he must have been kidnapped during the whole chaos during the Akuma attack. Chat Noir was probably the last person to see him. Marinette glanced away from Alia, the class suddenly seeming so muted as everyone trickled in, as if a dark cloud loomed over them all, dampening their spirits. Even Chloe was suitably quiet and somber, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue every now and then as Sabrina offered sympathy. Phones dotted the desks, ready to light up with updates on the search. Why didn't you text me? She asked Alia, keeping her voice down even as her pitch turned squeaky. Was there a search party? How am I learning this now? You let me sleep through this? I thought you knew. We only found out last night, and police called my place so my parents could give consent to asking me questions about it. Calm down. Gabriel Agreste is hiring the best private investigators to search for Adrien. They're not going to rest until he's found. I'm sure Adrien will be fine, Nino said, sliding into his own seat in front of them. Adrien's seat yawned, a gap in their usual friend group. His old man's a helicopter. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Adrien actually ran away. Ow! Nino cut off as Alia smacked him on the head with her notebook. Don't talk like that, Alia scolded. Adrien knows he has friends. He wouldn't have done something like that without telling us. A shrill voice rang out across the classroom. My angel Adrien run away? Marinette sighed, sinking her tired head into her hands. Please, she just wanted a moment to run through a million panicked possibilities and convoluted rescue plans, and Chloe was not helping that. I hear you over there, Chloe accused, standing up to point them out to the whole class. Don't make light of my Adrien's disappearance. He'd never run away. He's a famous model and heir to the Agreste estate. He's out there on the streets, in the filth and cold, probably going hungry. Well, I guess that doesn't sound like too much of a downgrade from your... Chloe, I appreciate your passion, but that's not kind. Madame Bustier said gently as she stepped into the classroom. Paris's finest are on the job, and I am certain they will find Adrien soon. Marinette pushed her hair out of her face, staring at her desk. Chloe huffed and sat down, her scowl melting into shaky twitches barely holding it together. When she turned her head away, trying not to think about how close Chloe was to Adrien, Marinette's thoughts didn't shut up. Her worries over Adrien bubbled to the surface even as Alia started taking notes beside her. Ladybug had to join the search party. She had to. As such a high-profile superhero, nobody would protest Ladybug asking around for leads on her own. As a superhero, she could do her own investigation. With Chat Noir, she wouldn't be the only super on the job. They could bounce ideas off of each other like they did for Akuma puzzles. Speaking of... Marinette leaned back in her seat, mentally diving deeper into her planning. Chat Noir claimed to have escorted Adrien out of danger. If they retraced his steps, they could use that roof as a starting point. Chat, for all the power his Miraculous gave him, was still human and made mistakes. He could have left Adrien in the line of non-Akuma danger without really considering the consequences. Sometimes, armed with an invincible suit and miraculous instincts, their suits leading them in wonderful muscle memory feats. It was easy to forget the limitations of the average human being. Even she forgot the power of the suits at times, leaving Marinette wondering why she felt so tired after what seemed like running short distances and suffering the pain of a pulled muscle from trying to be more flexible than her body was ready to handle. Ladybug lost her clumsiness after a bit of practice. Marinette still tripped over herself and walked into closed doors. Adrien didn't have the luxury of superpowers out there, wherever he was. Adrien couldn't drop safely from a 3-story building, making the leap to another roof, or swing inside through a window. Not to mention fighting off anyone who recognized a famous, rich teen model. She would fight Hawkmoth to save him, and pirates holding him for ransom. Her dedication to Adrien was fierce enough that she knew she had to get to him before someone else swooped in to save him in a romantic movie of the victim falling in love with his savior, or worse, falling in love with his kidnapper from the sheer amount of time spent together. Then, once she found Adrien, she would supply him with all the warmth and home-baked croissants he needed to regain his strength, and he would fall in love with her in his overflowing gratitude. She could hear him now. "Marinette, my savior! Marinette, you're not just a friend, you're... Marinette!" Wait. That wasn't Adrien's voice. She blinked, snapping her head up as she was pulled away from her fantasies, to find Alia shaking her shoulder. Her friend nudged her again, making sure she really was back to reality. "Marinette," Alia hissed, directing her eyes to lead Marinette to the front of the classroom. "Madame's asking you a question." Scratch that. The whole class was staring at her. Marinette chuckled nervously, sinking down under her desk to escape the attention. Oh. Maybe it was better to leave the planning for lunch period. Planning had to be put off for lunch break for more reasons than just the block of time. The beats between classes turned into prime opportunities for collecting data. Exhibit A. Gossip. Alia didn't question Marinette's insistence that she definitely had to learn everything connected to Adrien's disappearance. She belatedly realized this was because Alia expected her to obsess over Adrien, and not because she was information gathering for her own search later. She caught a few strange looks shot her way when she lingered around a corner or leaned too close to a couple of students discussing the topic. She tuned out news of comedic videos and homework woes, searching for those nuggets of Adrien. To her surprise, a lot of people were talking about Adrien, not just their homeroom class. Sure, she knew he was a famous model, but she hadn't expected so many kids at school to be affected by Adrien's absence. The world seemed so small sometimes, as if only Adrien existed. Then when the dream bubble popped, she realized there was more to life than her and her crush. He had really made a place for himself at this school. She let Alia drag her from class to class, listening to the students theorize about Adrien's disappearance and the spreading rumor of Alia and Marinette sharing a cute new beau. "Alia?" Marinette narrowed her eyes at her friend. "How many people saw you and Alar, on your way to the bakery?" Alar. Another mystery to contend with, one that had momentarily been pushed aside to process Adrien's status. Just a boy around her age. She had gathered something like that in their time fighting together as Ladybug and Chat Noir, but it was still odd to think about, and definitely toned. Even if he volleyed puns like it was a competitive sport more than brag about actual sports achievements, he seemed much more capable of being a superhero than she did. "Well, maybe a couple dozen?" Alia shrugged as if it didn't matter. Marinette squeaked. "We were walking through the more touristy streets in broad daylight. It's not like he was in a black suit or anything, it's fine. You worry too much." "I know, but what if people start asking questions? I can keep a secret, but he's..." She made a noise that was a mix of exasperation and disgust and resignation. "What if he slips up?" Alia raised an eyebrow at her interesting choice of expressive sounds. "Marinette, he's lasted this long without anyone catching on to his identity. I'm sure he knows how to take care of himself. Besides, your parents are chill. It's not like anything weird to bring a boy home. People will just think he's your boyfriend or something." "He's not my boyfriend, Marinette hesitated and sighed. "You're right. I guess I'm just worried. Not to mention the holiday rush is coming up, and I haven't finished everyone's Christmas presents yet. Ugh, why are there suddenly so many things to worry about?" Ugh, he's right. Classes that day failed to hold Marinette's attention for long. She eventually gave up on pretending to focus and raised her hand to ask to go to the bathroom. She didn't get that far after leaving the classroom, Tiki bobbing at her shoulder. "I have to find Adrien," she confessed to Tiki, keeping an eye out for anyone who might notice her skipping class. Adrien needed help, and her worry had been clear since Alia had told her in homeroom, but she had a dying need to make it clear that she felt only she could find him. He's out there in the cold, lost, all alone. He could be hurt. But Marinette, Tiki tugged at her ear, we don't even know where to start looking. I know. Ugh, if I hadn't been so caught up with handling Sha yesterday, maybe I could have known sooner. I could have gone out and done something. Maybe I could have noticed something. Her mind was whirling with her mistakes and all she could have done yesterday to save her crush. If he's been kidnapped, there's no telling how far they could be from Paris by now. You can't blame yourself for this, Tiki urged her. The police are looking for him. Marinette stepped out a side door and the frosty air hit her like a brick wall. The chattering of her teeth brought to mind a cold, shivering Adrien in some dark, dirty alley. I can help the police, she murmured aloud to herself. I can cover more ground, and they'd definitely be open to help from Ladybug. They'll definitely tell me about any leads. And Chat Noir saw Adrien during the attack, so we have a head start on the search, if nobody else saw where Chat left Adrien. But after school, Tiki pushed, fluttering on the issue. You have to check on Allor after school. And Ladybug isn't supposed to know where he's staying, Marinette finished, deflating. Her worries battled in her mind. The tug-of-war fought between worries over Adrien and worries over Allor, and couldn't find a clear winner. I hope he's found soon. Marinette returned to class, feeling helpless, her plans to scour Paris pushed back for later. If her classmates noticed a few tears in her eyes, they didn't comment. When Allor woke up, he found himself alone. Well, nearly alone. After finding that Marinette was neither in bed nor downstairs, he still had Plague, who appeared none too pleased at having his personal space heater up and about. Allor scooped up the little black Kwame and went up to the balcony. Don't even think of running off, Plague grumbled as the chill air hit them, blinking in the lazy sunlight. It's too cold, and you can't go home like this. You recognize me, Plague? You don't look like Adrien, Plague admitted, and Allor's hope fell. But I know my kit, and you feel like him. That makes one of us, Allor sighed. His spur-of-the-moment christening felt more appropriate to his current face. Can you fix this, Plague? Even Marinette doesn't recognize me. Plague yawned as Allor fretted. I've never seen this happen with my holders before. But I'm so tired, I'm going to need more cheese before I really think about things. He swept himself under Allor's shirt, searching for familiar warmth. Why do you come up out here, anyway? It's too early and too cold. Allor began to smile, even as Plague tickled against his chest. I'm glad you're feeling better today, Plague, he said. I just needed to get outside, I guess. I can't go home like this, like you said. My father won't recognize me. But maybe that didn't really matter anyway. He could probably avoid his father for a few days, if not a whole week. Natalie and the gorilla would notice, of course, and turn the streets of Paris upside down looking for him. But his father was his main concern, the one whose reaction he cared about the most. Like Plague said, he didn't look like himself. He didn't look like the perfect Agreste son. You'll fix this later, right, Plague? Then I felt wrong saying that. It didn't hold as much hope as he had intended. Then I'll go home. Plague, under his shirt, didn't respond. Allor, are you awake? Marinette's mother, her voice traveling faintly through the open trapdoor. Allor took another look over the rails of Marinette's balcony before going back down the trapdoor, closing it behind him. Sorry, he said, leaping down to land on all fours on the floor like a cat. He straightened up just in time to see the other trapdoor open, Madame Shang peeking into the room. Did Marinette already go to school? A few hours ago, she confirmed. She said you looked like you needed the sleep. What was that thump I just heard? Allor smiled sheepishly at that. Sorry, he said again, and she interrupted before he could say anything more. It's no problem. Come down for breakfast when you're ready. Yeah, thank you, Madame Shang. Plague slid out from under his shirt when the trapdoor closed again. Allor caught him and chuckled, setting him gently on a pillow. Wait right here, Plague. I'll be back with some cheese soon, he promised. He looked at his pile of clothes from the day before and settled with changing into those again, taking them to the bathroom to change. Marinette had let him borrow some pajamas that were a size too big on her, but didn't have too much in the way of day clothes that were his size. Even if it was unlikely anyone would walk in on him, it still felt weird doing anything in Marinette's bedroom. Not to mention with the posters staring right at him. No, he was more comfortable getting ready in the bathroom. A breakfast of buttery croissants and sweet hazelnut spread awaited him on the kitchen table. He poked his head to look around the small apartment, but found he was alone. The perfect opportunity to swipe some cheese and deliver it to Plague, returning to the breakfast table to set out in record time. He found MariChat's parents in the bakery, and they thankfully didn't prod him about attending school that day. It was simple to ask what he could do to help out, and that was it, his day suddenly filled with cleaning, restocking, shelving, moving pastries this way and that, featuring ingredients from cupboards and fridges. It distracted him from thoughts of Natalie and Grillo running themselves ragged, trying to find him, and of his father in a rage over his interrupted schedules. Having only seen the front of the bakery from a customer's perspective, working from the opposite side was a much different experience than expected. He barely realized how much time had passed until he saw MariChat enter the bakery's kitchen. He smiled and waved, and her surprise slid off her face, but she disappeared out of the kitchen. Probably just gone upstairs to her room, so he didn't worry. Every now and then, however, he glanced to the door in the back, waiting for MariChat to appear. So many people came in and passed through the bakery. Some he recognized, others he didn't, but their eyes glanced over him all the same as if he wasn't a famous model, and ordered their loaves and cakes, recognized as just a new employee at the bakery. When he turned to grab something, he caught snatches of conversation mentioning the cute new employee. When he switched to working in the back, and Sabine chatted with regulars and friends, they asked about his name and if he would be working there from now on. Even if nobody recognized him as Adrien, MariChat and Alia recognized that he was Chat Noir. They knew him for himself. His achievements in protecting Paris, fighting against akumas, watching over its citizens on late evening patrols, and as an occasional friend to those who needed one. That in mind, he glanced to the door again and nearly jumped when Tom told him to ask MariChat if she wanted to come down for an after-school snack. Eller gathered himself in his runaway heart in time to agree to the task. He brushed the flour off his hands. He awkwardly knocked on the door on the ceiling and pushed it up when he heard no objection. "MariChat? Princess?" No response, but a familiar beeping had him scrambling up and darting to where Plag rested. Eller swiped up his baton, and a small screen popped up with a button. For a moment he feared Ladybug would see his unmasked face, but that was a worry without substance. She already knew Aller. He didn't have anything to hide with this face. Plag stirred on last night's pillow, glaring at him for interrupting his catnap. He slid an easy smile over his face, sharp teeth snatching at his bite. "At your bacon call, my lady." She ignored his theatrics. "Meet me outside on our usual rooftop." Short and to the point. That was his Ladybug. "Right away." It took some poking and soft pleads for Plag to give in, and then Chat Noir clambered deftly up the ladder and out the trapdoor onto the balcony. He didn't question why he didn't spot MariChat while passing through her room, all thoughts of her vanishing as his mind was filled with his Ladybug. It was the same breathable suit as always, to his disappointment. He'd been hoping for some extra epic accessories to make him the Snow Prince to his Snow Lady, as well as some much-needed warmth. His claws were going to freeze out there. Chat pounced on the roof where his lady waited, landing on all fours. "I came at breakneck speed. Where's the akuma?" he asked, getting right to the point, ready to leap into action. "There's not one this time," Ladybug replied, her eyes scanning the streets below, searching. "Chat, where did you leave Adrien Agreste? I heard you saved him during the akuma fight yesterday. You said you left him on a rooftop, right?" Chat's heart leaped to his throat. He swallowed it down. "Yeah, I did," he answered, trying to think, racing for an excuse to cover for his civilian self. The taste of white flour and powdered sugar tickled his tongue. "I whisked him away before he could get cobbled." "Great, that'll be the starting point for our investigation," Ladybug definitively decided, but he caught a quirk of a smile at the thematic choice for his puns today. "He's been filed as a missing person, and we're going to find him. As far as I can tell from the information I gathered, he was last seen at the beginning of the akuma attack yesterday," she explained. Her eyes snapped to him, and Chat resisted flinching. "Which makes you the last person to see him, and that roof his last known location." Chat's jaw dropped. Missing? That had never happened when he went off as Chat Noir before. But then again, he had never been out of sight of his bodyguard, father's secretary, or friends for this long. Even with stakeouts and drawn-out battles, he had managed to pop back into public eye long enough to assuage concerns during the chaos of akuma attacks. "So, Chat Noir, where exactly did you leave Adrien? Let's go before the trail gets too cold. As heroes, we need to take responsibility for what happens during akuma attacks in case Hawkmoth took the opportunity to kidnap him." Chat's mind whirled. His mouth felt dry, but he swallowed and said, "Of course." "This way," and leaped off in the direction of their last akuma fight. "Wait, no, closer to the school." Adrien, as a civilian, didn't have the speed to get to the fight in time and had the self-preservation to stay away. Most of the time, anyway. When he could duck around a corner to transform. Unlike one opportunistic journalist he could think of. Shah figured the specific building didn't matter, as long as it was in that vague area. They landed on the flat top of an apartment building within view of the school. Looking over to Ladybug, that seemed to be the right call to make. She wasn't suspicious, going right to work, scouring the flat rooftop for clues. She stopped at a hatch on the roof, long enough to notice it was unlocked. Shah contemplated throwing out some false clues to give her something to chase after, but couldn't think of what. Was Adrien acting weird when you picked him up? Did you see anyone else around? But what? What do you mean? The question caught him off guard. When you brought him up here, was he acting paranoid and looking over his shoulder? Like someone was following him. Maybe he knew he was being targeted. That kind of thing. Shah numbly shook his head. Probably best to let the trail go cold and die and come up with a story for when Plague could turn him back to normal. He shivered. I wasn't really thinking, he said. He was a spoiled rich brat who couldn't get out of the danger zone fast enough. I moved him out of the way and ran to help you fight the akuma. Any idea how many people were around at the time? Ladybug reached, poking around for any hint he could offer. The answer to that he could give truthfully. A lot. The chill was setting in, making it difficult to come up with false leads anyway. Kids and teachers from the school and other civilians who were in the area at the time, he went on. Ladybug nodded, encouraging him. Anyone else up here on the roof? Shah shook his head. Nobody. That answer served to frustrate her again as they were put back at square one, but she didn't press him with more questions. Shah followed her around at her heels, ears tentatively flicking each time she stopped to peer at something. You care an awful lot about this kid, don't you? What's going on? Shah, we're superheroes. We have the ability to help people. People being this snot-nosed celebrity. Ladybug narrowed her eyes at him. He's around your age, Shah sighed, his teeth chattering. Why can't we leave this to the police and actual investigators? The question came out with a little more bite than he meant to add. Chat Noir, we help people, Ladybug reiterated firmly. Adrien could have been kidnapped, or worse. The police don't have this starting point, or miraculous abilities. We have the best chance of finding him, especially if Hawkmoth was the one to kidnap him. She looked at him and sighed with a soft smile. Come on. You look like you could do with some warming up. Adrien probably went inside after you left him, anyway. Ladybug ushered Shah over to the hatch by the shoulders before dropping down by herself. He followed, not bothering with the ladder set there, landing on all fours in the middle of a deserted hallway. The halls were Spartan, decorated with scuffs, muted paint, and shiny metal cards marking each door with a number. The top floor of an apartment building in one of Europe's capital cities should have been luxurious. But this building, while situated in one of Europe's most expensive cities, didn't reach for the stars. Positioned so close to the school, it served more as long-term residential than transitory. Ladybug left him to warm up on his own. Shah's ears pressed back, but he couldn't deny he wasn't grateful for the change in scenery. Ladybug knocked at doors, greeting each person with the official air of Paris's superheroine, and followed with questioning about Adrien. Meanwhile, the object of her search stood at her side to give smooth lines, insisting that any cooperation helped keep the citizens of Paris safe. He lacked his usual energetic spark, was busy wondering how he could escape this chore, and Ladybug shot him questioning glances. Ladybug sighed after another door closed, Shah having been a little too eager to rush the person along. Chat Noir, are you jealous? What? Shah's brain stuttered. No, wait. Yes, wait. What? Are you jealous? Ladybug repeated. Of Adrien Agreste. I know you have a crush on me, and I have a crush on Adrien. She floundered, her eyes growing wide, and a blush blooming under her mask. Shah blinked. She had a crush on him? That was something. Not something he wanted to try to process right then, however. He wasn't even sure how she came to that conclusion. What I mean is that we can't let personal hang-ups get in the way of saving someone who could be in trouble. If he's even in trouble, Shah muttered without thinking about it. Of course he's in trouble. Adrien has no reason to run off alone and hide from everyone like this. Maybe he was tired of being a celebrity. Maybe he wanted to be someone else for a while, get away from his life at home. Shah started to brush his hair back, habit from always correcting his styled hair, but stopped with a scowl. Ladybug whirled on him. Is this what your attitude is about? She demanded. You think he ran away from home? I didn't. Adrien Agreste has a great life here in Paris with a comfortable lifestyle, great grades, great looks, and a ton of supportive friends. His father might not be the most friendly man in the world, but he's still there for his son when he needs him. Shah bit his lip to keep himself from arguing and giving away his identity. Ladybug raised a challenging eyebrow, not backing down. They stared at each other for a long moment, then broke. They continued knocking at doors, and allowing for the few impromptu selfies, but there was a tension in the air. Shah stopped as he was about to knock at the next door. He looked back, and Ladybug shook her head. I'm just worried about him. No one's ever gone missing during an akuma attack before, and you know he's in that one class of students that always gets akumatized, she continued. She met his eyes. I'm sorry for blowing up on you like that, Chat Noir. Shah glanced at the next door, then to Ladybug. I'm sorry, too, he sighed. With the suit messing up and everything else. I'm not in the greatest mood today. It's nothing to do with you, my lady. As a matter of fact, seeing you puts a smile on my face. Maybe we... His ring beeped. The two heroes stared at his hand. He hadn't used Cataclysm. A flash enveloped Shah, and then there was just one hero in that hallway, but no sign of Adrien. Aller caught Plague as the Kwame fell, and then picked up his baton where it had fallen off his back. Maybe we should take some time to cool off, he finished his sentence sheepishly. Ladybug smiled at him. Good plan. And maybe we shouldn't advertise this face around at Ladybug's side, she added. Go take the elevator down and head to your friend's place. I want to ask around a bit more before giving it a rest. Aller headed to the elevator, tucking Plague into his pocket. Belatedly, he realized it would take him so long to get back to the bakery by foot, and then the Dupang Shangs must be looking for him. He felt guilty to do that to them. He wasn't used to having people actually concerned about his whereabouts, more used to people who expected him to try to escape. Then he looked at the baton in his other hand, and grinned. Maybe having these powers stick around wasn't so bad. He took to the rooftop to leap over with his baton, racing, jumping, and flipping in the direction of the bakery. On foot he might have gotten lost, but he knew the layout of Paris so much better from above. He made it back to the balcony of the bakery in record time, and made sure Plague was safely in his pocket before going inside. Aller only remembered he had been sent to get Marinette when Sabine asked him about it later. Apparently, she had assumed the both of them had taken a nap upstairs. She hadn't wanted to disturb them. End of Chapter 5.